Hi everybody, this is the second video for week 4. On 4.2 we're asked to use the percentage method, which does involve more math, but it's honestly not that bad once you get the hang of it. What we're going to do is we're going to look in the book on the T pages. Again, I'm using the 2015 edition to show you, but when I actually do the problem, I'm going to use the 2016 edition because the principles are again the same. So we're given the amount of allowance, the value of each allowance based on how an individual is paid. So if we look at Skymer, he's married, 4 allowances, and his salary is $1,575. All of the information in yellow I just entered directly from the textbook problem, and anything that is in yellow I will be grading on that information, so make sure you enter it correctly out of the textbook. So the first thing we're going to have to do, or at least what I like to do, is I like to write down how much each allowance is worth. It saves me from flipping pages later. So Skymer, since he is married, he is for withholdings and he is paid weekly. We're going to look on page T2, which is the same for the 2016 edition. Since he is paid weekly, if we were doing the 2015 book, his withholding allowance would be $76 per allowance. But in the edition of the textbook we're using, it's $76.90. So I'm just going to write $76.90. And then I'm just going to go through and use the rest of the information from our textbook, which looks exactly like this, just different amounts. And I'm going to enter that in so I don't have to flip as many pages later. So biweekly is $153.80. Quarterly is $1,000. Semi-monthly is $166.70. And then monthly is $333.30. This is just going to save time later. So when we go back to the T pages, we're going to go, the actual tables we're going to use to calculate starts on page T3, but we needed the information on T2 to actually calculate. So column A, which is going to be the column on the left of these first couple of pages, are for single individuals. The B side is for married, so the right side is married, the left side is single. And so since this is a married person and he is paid weekly, which you can see right up there, we're going to look for his amount. But here is the trick. We actually have to calculate how much of his income is taxable before we can use the chart. So we're going to go back to our problem. So we're going to figure out how much of his weekly salary is actually taxable based on his withholdings. We're going to take our $1,575, subtract, he has 4 allowances, and he's allowed $76.90 per allowance. This is going to tell us how much of his income is actually taxable. Again, do not rely on Excel to do the calculations for you. Oops. There we go. Pull up the calculator again. So the first thing I'm going to do is, since the type of calculator I'm using does have the parentheses, I'm just going to go ahead and type 1575 subtract 4 times 76.90. And I'm just going to double check because that doesn't look like it has calculated correct. 4 times 76.90 is 307.60. So I'm just going to make myself another little note. So 1575 minus 307.60 means his taxable income is $1,264.40. So $1,267.40. So this is the amount we're going to use when we look at the tables in the back of the book. So we're going to go back to the tables, again, since he's married and he's paid weekly, we're going to use table 1, the B side. And he is paid, we figured it was $1267.40. So he is over $512, but less than $1,582. So we're going to use this second row. So we know it's going to be $34.90. Again, I'm just going to make myself a note. $34.90. That is going to be added to our next calculation. So we have anything over 15% of anything over $512. So we're going to take our $1267. This is where it helps to write everything down. $1267.40. Subtract. Oops, keep opening the wrong thing. Subtract $512. Okay, so we're going to subtract 512. Gives us $755.40, and we need to take 15% of that. So we're going to multiply that times 15%. So using the old book, it would be $133.31. Now, if we go back to our textbook, instead of the $34.90, it's going to be the $35.50 plus 15% of anything over $520. So we're going to take our $1267.40, subtract the $520, gives us $747.40. Multiply that by the 15%, gives us $112.11. So we're going to take the two amounts in blue and add them together, and that's going to get the amount withheld. It's $35.50. So the tax withheld for this individual is $147.61. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and enter in the amounts over here. That is the base amounts of their taxes. So we're going to use, let me get the book in my lap so I can see it better. We're going to use, he is single, so we're going to use column A. 8 withholding allowances. So we're going to have our $1,200 minus 8 times the $153.80. So 1,200 minus 8 times 153.80 gives us a taxable, let's see, that's I can't talk, it's $1,046.20. That does not look right, so I'm going to calculate it again. It's 8 times 153.80. Okay, so that's $1,230. So to find out his actual taxable income, which is and I accidentally entered that incorrectly. Again, make sure you double check everything. He has no withholdings. Let's see, Thomas Wolf, no withholdings. So this one is actually fairly straightforward, which is really nice when this happens. So his taxable income is going to be the whole $1,200. So that makes it easier. So if we were using the old version of the textbook, since he is single and he is paid bi-weekly, we would use table 2, single, and then we would use the second row. Again, the rows are not really going to change with the new addition. What's going to change is the amount of income tax. So in this case, it is, let's see, it is going to be the $3,550 plus 15% of anything over $443. So we're going to take his $1,200, subtract 443, which is $757, multiplied that by 15%, which gives us $113.55. And then again, we're going to add the two numbers in blue together. Gives us $149.05. And you're just going to repeat the process for the rest of these problems. And so one of them will have nothing withheld. So if you get an amount that has 0, it's going to be fine. But let me show you how that's actually going to look so you don't have to take a lot of your time. So you're going to have, let's bring out the calculator. He is paid $1,090 semi-monthly. So it's going to be $1,090 minus 8 times 166. Oops. So times 8 times 166.70. If you do the math, 1090, let's do the 8 times 166.70. If you notice, the 1333 is actually bigger than his paycheck. So there is nothing withheld. So whenever you have a withholding amount larger than their actual pay, it's going to be a 0 amount withheld. So if you have any more questions on this assignment, let me know, and I hope you have a great day.